Great Wednesday morning to you all, and welcome to another episode of Frankly Speaking Titans right here on NGSC Sports Network. We are also streaming on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Twitch. Want to ask all you listeners, all the Titan fans, all the Titan groups, if you're a listener, a fan, a viewer, whatever you may be, do me one big favor. One big favor. It'll only take you one moment. Please share this to your feed or timeline so other Tennessee Titans can go ahead and have the opportunity to watch this great, great, great show. And I mean great show that we have for you today. We're going to recap the Titans versus the Saints. What went wrong? Not much went right in the 16-15 loss. We're also going to have a great, great interview. Actually, two great, great interviews with you this morning. The first interview is going to be with Chargers reporter for at Sporting Trib, Fernando Ramirez. He's going to go ahead and preview with us what we should expect from the Los Angeles Chargers when they play the Tennessee Titans at Nissan Stadium. We're also going to have former Tennessee Titans center. He played in the Super Bowl back in 1999 with our very own Titans. We're going to welcome in Kevin Long later in the show. So two great, great, great interviews we're going to have for you. Then we are going to talk about Larry's keys to the game coming up this weekend versus the Los Angeles Chargers. And then we're going to have our week 2 picks. Didn't do too good in week 1 where we were only 6-10 with our picks. But we're going to go ahead and give you our picks for week 2 with hopes that we're going to do a little bit better. So let's go ahead. Let's get started. Let's not waste any time. It wasn't pretty. Actually, it was ugly, disgusting, depressing might be just some of the words to explain this Titans team on Sunday versus the New Orleans Saints. We knew it was going to be a tough game. I told you it was going to be a tough game. You're on the road. It's your first game of the season. It's going to be a rowdy atmosphere. And believe me, it was in the Superdome. Yet, the Titans beat themselves. The Saints did not win this game. It was the Titans who got beaten. I'm going to tell you right now, folks, yes, did Ryan Tannehill have the worst game of his career? Yes, he did. There is no doubt about it. He threw 3 interceptions. He was 16 of 34, 198 yards. Like I said, 3 interceptions several times in this game. Several times in this game, he did not check down. He went after his number 1 receiver. The first one didn't check off, kept pretty much just pressuring the ball in to DeAndre Hopkins, who had, I think, like 7 catches on the day, but he was forcing the football. There was 2 big plays, one to Spears, one to Okonkwo, that they were both wide open. Both of them probably would have been touchdowns, and one he overthrew, another one he underthrew. It was a terrible game. He was sacked 3 times in this game. There were several times that receivers were open rather than Hopkins. I mean, it showed it on the films when I watched the films. You see plays of Burks being wide open. You see plays of Okonkwo being wide open. And it goes on and on and on. Just not a very good game for Tannehill. Yet, you can't blame this entire situation on Ryan Tannehill. If you want to put blame in, I'll tell you what. First of all, this was a team loss. All aspects of the game pretty much did not play well in this game at all. The only one that you can give a lot of credit to is Nick Foles, the one that everybody was so skeptical of to start the season. How would he do as a place kicker? Well, he went 5 for 5, kicked a 50-yard field goal, accumulated for all of the Tennessee Titans points. But the man that I blame the most, the individual that I blame the most for this team not being ready to play is head coach Mike Vrabel. This was Mike Vrabel's fault. How many times during preseason did you all hear me say on this show, you have to play your starters in preseason to get them ready, comfortable, unified, and actually just trustworthy of each other in the game. Vrabel did not do this, and boy, did it hurt this team in game one, and did it show in game one. Tannehill did not trust his offensive line. Why didn't he trust his offensive line? Because he didn't have a chance to play with them during the preseason. You can't count practice as playing with your offensive line. Come on, that's ludicrous. He did not get the opportunity. I blame that on Vrabel. The play calling by Tim Kelly was also terrible, terrible, terrible with a capital T. But I go back to Vrabel. Vrabel did not play these. He elected not to play them, and everybody saw what happened. Tannehill looked, like I said, the worst that I've ever seen him look. Maybe that Cincinnati playoff game, he looked as bad. But other than that, there was not another game. And I don't see Ryan Tannehill continuing to look like this. But at the end of the day, this one's on Vrabel, and he needs to be man enough to say that, hey, I screwed up. I didn't get these guys enough reps during preseason to get them ready. Because, during the preseason, that's when you build that trust in that offensive line. That's when you get to know that offensive line. And this offensive line we knew was going to struggle. We were hoping they would be okay. And I thought Dillon and Skoronski did a pretty good job. But it takes 5 people on the line to play well for the quarterback to be comfortable. And he was not comfortable. He was doing a lot of things mechanically wrong because of the trust he did not have in his offensive line. It was so obvious. Then the thing you do when you have an offensive line that isn't that good, or you're skeptical about, or you're not very confident in, the offensive coordinator at that time has to call a lot of quick, tight passes, and you have to run the ball. They ran the ball effectively when they ran the ball. I mean, I think it was Spears who averaged 9 yards. Henry was running the ball pretty effectively, and they stopped running. What the hell are you doing taking Derrick Henry out of the game at crucial times? All you're doing to the defense is saying, we're passing the ball. Derrick Henry is not in here. It was so obvious when you could have done play action, quick screens, and things of that sort to keep this game flowing. When you have an offensive line like this, I'm not talking about these bubble screens to wide receivers, not even the tight end, but you have to throw these screens to your running backs and gain yardage. And then you also have to use your tight end, who was transparent in this game. Yes, the long opportunity they had him fail because Tannehill overthrew him, but he was only targeted one other time in this game. When you have that type of offensive line, you're not confident in. That's where your tight end comes to play, and that's where Tim Kelly, needs to manage a much better game than he did here. It was terrible, folks. The game management by this offensive coordinator. I mean, it was terrible, and I mean terrible. But they're going to have to go ahead and do things more effectively in the next game, which we'll talk about later. But, their red zone, they couldn't score in the red zone. I mentioned 5 field goals by Nick Folk. That accumulated for all that points, not a darn touchdown in game one. Just terrible, terrible, terrible. Also, why not put in 2 backs at the same time? So now you have them guessing. Also, it gives you extra protection for Ryan Tannehill. Come on, if I can figure that out sitting here talking to you, listeners, why the hell can't the Tennessee Titans, Mike Vrabel, and Kelly figure out this on their own? It's ludicrous. I don't understand it. Now, Mike Vrabel is a defensive style coach, and overall, we'll talk about the defense in a few minutes, but, there was also another big play, a couple of other mistakes. I thought overall the special teams played well, except for the block punt. If you take the block punt away, I thought the coverage was really, really good on kickoffs. They made 5 field goals, like we said a couple of times already. So overall, another facet of the game that we were worried about did well in their respective category. But you can't be 2 for 12 on first downs, have your quarterback sacked 3 times, and having being afraid and expect to win. Now, everybody talks about this great defense. And I'll tell you what, the front four, the front seven was really, really good. I thought Arden Key had a terrific, terrific game up front. I thought, how about Amani Hooker? I mean, one of the few bright spots, and I'll explain that in a minute. But he had a fumble, an interception, 2 solo tackles, 2 assists, and 2 sacks in the game. Amani Hooker, first play of the game, he strips the ball out of the kick returner's hand, and it's our ball in the red zone. And what do? You know, we kick a darn field goal. But the defense, front seven, they were putting pressure on him. But I'll tell you what, our secondary was terrible. It sucked. It sucked. Sean Murphy Bunting was terrible. He got beat a couple of times in this game, one for a touchdown. I thought Fulton didn't have his best game either. Our weakness on this team is definitely the secondary. When you look at this team, they struggled to be able to cover. They did not play well. Carr, it looked like he was comfortable throwing all day long, and I was just so surprised to see them not play well. I mean, also, we did get a lot of pressure on Carr up front, but our secondary has to play a lot better if we are going to even come close to beating the I sometimes want to call them San Diego still, the LA Chargers this upcoming weekend. Now, everybody talks about this ref call. Was it right? Was it wrong? You know what? Although I think they made the wrong call, that is not why we lost this game, folks. We had a lot of opportunities. Don't get me wrong. It would have been a huge swing. It would have definitely played into our hands because we would have went up. And then, we get the ball later on, at the half, get it first. But at the end of the day, we missed other opportunities. Don't blame the refs for this loss, despite the wrong call. I thought the officiating was terrible for both sides. But at the end of the day, you can't have penalties. And how often do we talk about winning the turnover battle? We talk about that over and over and over again, and they did not win. Now, people also talk about the decision Vrabel made to kick the field goal and to keep his defense on, hoping his defense would stop the Saints, and we get another opportunity at Nick Folk, who was really hot that game, making the winning field goal. Hindsight's 2020. If it works the plan, everybody's saying how great of a coach Mike Vrabel is. It didn't work, so now you want to criticize him. At the end of the day, it's a lot easier for us to sit back here, watch from our couches, watch from our recliners, and say, he should have done this, he should have done that. At the end of the day, he went with his gut. That's what he's doing. How many times have we said this team is going to win because of defense? And he went with that model. He said, I'm going to win it with my defense. Unfortunately, the defense did not hold up to what he wanted them to do. They did not stop Derek Carr. They did not win the football game like this dominant defense is supposed to do. So, in my opinion, I'm not going to sit here and argue that he made the wrong call because it didn't work. But he went with his gut. He's a defensive coach, and he understands how dominant this defense is supposed to be. You learn from this. But at the end of the day, he didn't make the wrong call. He had 3 timeouts left. You stop him, you get the ball back, and now your offense has to go ahead and drive down the field. Now, his offense, unfortunately, wasn't playing well, so who knows what would have happened. But you never know. But at the end of the day, he went with his gut feeling, and it did not work. But I'll tell you what, folks, very, very sloppy game here by the Tennessee Titans. Why they took Derrick Henry out as much as they did, I don't understand, and I will not understand. The more this guy is in there, the more other teams are going to have to feel like that he might get the ball at any time. So they're going to key on him, and that's going to open up other opportunities. Terrible, terrible coaching in this game. This game, Mike Vrabel was outcoached by Allen. He was outcoached. And not only during the game, but also what happened during preseason by him not getting his players ready to play in game one. Well, folks, like I said, we have a great, great, great show in store for you. Not my picks yet. We're going to go ahead, and when we come back from break, we're going to go ahead and have Fernando Ramirez from the Los Angeles Chargers on with us. They played a tough game, lost a tough one. I think it was 36-34 to Miami. Just an unbelievable game. We're going to talk to him about that game and what he expects to happen in this upcoming game at Nissan Field, the home opener for your Tennessee Titans. Let's take a break. We'll be back right after this message.
So anxious about moving Mom into a senior living community. We feel so much better now. Mom is thriving. She's living her own life. We're totally in debt to Phoenix Senior Living because they recognize that when it comes to Mom, everything matters. I can't thank them enough for giving Mom the life we so desperately wanted her to have. She has such a sense of purpose and connection now. Her whole life has changed.
At Phoenix Senior Living, we want to provide more than just a beautiful building. In all my years of working with seniors, I have never once received a letter about how life-changing our beautiful building and decor were. But I have received letter after letter full of gratitude and appreciation for the people who have given their loved ones the love, care, and attention they needed. For every senior in our care, we invest the time and energy getting to know them, their likes, their dislikes, their interests, their needs, because truly knowing each of our residents and their families is crucial to providing excellent care unique to just them. That's our vision, and it's one we'd be honored to share with you and your loved one.
13 Daggers Tattoo Studio is looking for a new tattoo artist. Must be established with a strong portfolio and good work ethic. Stop by today at 13 Daggers across from Patriot Park on Fort Campbell Boulevard. Clarksville's ultimate tattoo studio. Tattoos, touch-ups, and consultations. See the artist's work online at 13daggerstattoo.com and get the custom experience you want with killer ink. Book today and get pricked by a pro. 13 Daggers Tattoo Studio. Working hard on the boulevard.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Friendly Speaking Titans. Oh, baby, we hit it hard. We told you everything we could tell you about the previous loss to the New Orleans Saints, and now we're going to start looking forward to this upcoming week where the Tennessee Titans play the Los Angeles Chargers. And it is my great honor, thrill, and pleasure to now bring in Los Angeles Chargers reporter at Sporting Trib. Let's bring in Fernando Ramirez. Fernando, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on. And week 2 madness has already started, I think, around the league, especially with some of the news coming out about Rodgers and some other stuff. So it's only week 1 and it's already been a whirlwind.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, let's talk about week 1. You play the Miami Dolphins. You scored 34 points, but you lose. Talk about how disappointing that loss was when your offense put up quite a few points.
I mean, 85% of the time you score 34 points, you're going to win the game. It just didn't happen here just because of a lack of, I don't want to say lack of adjustments, I think, because in the first 3 quarters, the Miami Dolphins were attacking the Chargers with crossing routes, and they were using crossing routes to get Tyreek Hill open. And it wasn't just one crossing route and then he'd go down. No, the cornerbacks had troubles tackling Tyreek Hill or even Jalen Waddle at the time. And but Tua Tagovailoa had all day to throw. The pass rush wasn't getting to him. He would release the ball quickly. So they did crossing routes, and in the last quarter, they started going deep to Tyreek. I honestly think Tyreek came over to Mike McDaniel and said, "Hey, they really can't stop me at all. They have no game plan. Let's go at them even deeper." Last year, the Chargers played a lot more zone coverage, but they were also pressing at the line. For some reason, they went away from that. They played man, and it just everything that could go wrong went wrong for their defense. Kenneth Murray looked like he was lost on an island most of the game. So it just, for all the money that you have invested in this defense, it just did not look good. And another thing Mike McDaniel did, which was smart, is he went away from Derwin James. Every play was wherever Derwin was, he was going the opposite way with runs or with the ball. So it was a very, very ugly game for the Chargers.
Yeah, and you mentioned up a great point earlier, Fernando. You said about making adjustments, and I talk about that so much. A great coach is defined really throughout the game, but also at halftime. What adjustments does he make to come out in the second half? And that brings me up to the question, and I'm going to be real direct with it. Is Brandon Staley the wrong coach for this Chargers team?
Well, I mean, I can explain it to you like this. Kellen Moore's offense scored 17 points in the first half, came out in the second half, changed some stuff up, and they scored another 17 points. That means that they made adjustments. They saw what the defense was giving them, and they did different things to attack the defense. The defense. Brandon Staley's defense really didn't do much. The only thing that they did in the second half is as soon as J.C. Jackson got burned on that 35-yard touchdown by Tyreek Hill, they just took him out. Like, that's not adjusting, because Josier Taylor, same thing happened to him. He was getting burned. So as of right now, Brandon Staley hasn't lost the locker room, and I think that's the most important part of all this.
Absolutely.
I think the one problem though is that these young head coaches, not just Brandon, but a lot of the other head coaches, they come in and they have, I don't want to use the word ego, but they're known for offense or defense. And what do they want to do when they get up to being a head coach? They want to call that defense. But that's the problem. I mean, sometimes you kind of have to let go, and you have to be a head coach first, not a defensive coordinator, not an offensive coordinator. And I've asked Brandon before, I'm like, are you willing to give up the play calling duties? And he's like, I'm going to be the one calling the plays. And I'm like, okay, but it is starting to get kind of at that point where you're kind of like, hey, like, you may need to relinquish that play calling duty. But as of right now, he hasn't. But yeah, it's very interesting. And I think these next few games are going to be very telling. I think if they start off rough, because a lot of people had them starting off pretty well. I mean, you have to start off well, especially with that back end of the schedule. It's going to be rough. So, but if they start off rough, I would expect the question to start about, hey, maybe you should give up play calling duties, because it was ugly on Sunday. Very, very, very ugly.
Yeah, and it was ugly. I mean, the defense, like you said, especially the secondary, Fernando. I mean, Tyreek had 215 yards on 11 receptions. You had Tua throw for whatever he wanted, 466 yards. I mean, it was just incredible if you were a Miami fan. It was disappointing if you were obviously a Chargers fan.
And it could have been even more points. There was 2 turnovers in the red zone.
That's right. So now you're going into Tennessee, Fernando, you got Hopkins, you got Burks now, 2 great receivers. I mean, what do they got to do now going into Tennessee to change this around so you don't see Tannehill do the same thing?
Well, I mean, to be completely honest, I think Burks is going to be the one that might give him issues. DeAndre Hopkins, I think with Michael Davis, they're a little bit more, they could adapt to somebody like DeAndre. But I think Burks, because he's faster, I think he may give him a little bit of issue. But it's kind of like Sebastian Joseph Day said after the game. You're not going to see guys like a receiver like that the rest of the season. That guy's unique. And that is true. But what happens if down the line in the playoffs, you have to play him again? Like, what are you going to do there? But I would go more towards the fear of Derrick Henry more than I would the receivers.
And
I
that
think,
raises the question, and I'm glad you segued into my next question, Fernando. Even though you only gave up 70-yard rushing to Miami, the Chargers are considered one of the worst defensive rushing team
yeah,
defending the rush. Now you're going into what you said is not just Derrick Henry, but Tyjae Spears
yeah.
as well, both two dangerous runners. How scary is it to know you're going up against Derrick Henry, who can easily pull off a 200-yard rushing game?
No, well, and that's the thing too, is that everybody's talking about the 70-yard rushing that Miami had and that these guys might have stopped it, but they didn't. Miami went away from running the football at one point.
Correct.
So it wasn't that they, because in the first half they were running the football and they were getting yards. So it was just in the second half where they kind of went away from it and the Chargers were able to do better against it. But yeah, no, Derrick Henry, and like you said, Sharp, that's kind of like a Chris Johnson and Lendell White kind of situation where you could either get gashed or you're gonna get bullied. And I'm just throwing it back to when it was CJ and Lendell White, because I remember they had a lethal combination with those two guys. But now here you have another lethal combination, and they can change the pace on you. Obviously, they can do a lot of different things with both running backs, but the Chargers defense needs to be on their P's and Q's. It's going to be a tough one, especially because you're in Tennessee. It's going to be tough, but I think what they're going to try and do is disrupt Tannehill. I'm sure the Titans are going to try and just run the football, especially because they know that the Chargers' weakness is against the run. So if I was Mike Vrabel, that's what I would do. I would just attack the Chargers' run defense, especially after Tannehill threw 3 picks against the Saints. So I would just try. I would try and run the football as much as I could and have the Chargers stop it. Let's see if you can stop it. Which I don't, as of right now, I don't think they can. But it's going to be interesting to see the way the Titans try and attack the Chargers defense.
Yeah, Chargers have a pretty damn good running back themselves in Austin Eckler, who had 117 yards and a touchdown versus Miami. But you're also now going up against the number 1 rush defense in all of football. How important, let me ask you it this way. If this Russian defense stops Eckler, which obviously they're going to try to do, and make it a one-dimensional game with Herbert, can Herbert handle being one-dimensional and it all being thrown on him?
Well, to be completely honest, he's done it the last 3 years. So his first 3 years, they haven't been able to run the football consistently. And it all has kind of come down on Justin Herbert. I know he's catching a lot of flack right now, but that game last week wasn't on him. They put up 34 points. The one thing that I guess some fans are frustrated at is that Mike Williams wasn't integrated into the offense of the final drive. Quentin Johnston, Joshua Palmer, they really weren't a part of it, but they still moved the football up and down and everything. So, but yeah, I could see Justin Herbert being able to handle it, especially if they take away the run. But the Charger offensive line is a lot better than it was last year. So I think they're going to try and emphasize running the football. I don't know if Austin Eckler, I don't know what his status is right now. They're saying that he might not practice on Wednesday. So I don't know how his practice schedule is going to be this whole week. But hopefully he, for these guys' sake, he plays on Sunday. I guess it's an ankle issue, but he spoke to us after the game, so I think he should be fine. But obviously you never speculate. Joshua Kelly's another guy that he kind of changed the pace in that second half. He had in that game, he had 91 yards, a touchdown. So that's what the Chargers have been hoping for, a change of pace running back, a guy that can come in and help them. And they're hoping that Joshua Kelly can consistently be that guy, because the Chargers right now have the number 1 rushing offense in the NFL. So they're hoping that wasn't an outlier game and they can continue it. But again, this team is going to go the way Justin Herbert goes, and that defense. But it's incredible that I think Justin Herbert scored like 1,000-something points since he came in, and the defense has allowed 1,000-something points. So it's incredible that he's like, you've had to face kind of that that thing where the defense kind of works against you and not for you. So, yeah, I'm sure they're hoping, and that's what they got. The guy said this week, Khalil Mack and all these guys were like, hey, we just need to concentrate and watch the film and get better. But I just don't know if you can do it like 1 week after having a humbling loss, like Khalil said.
Ryan Tannehill had talk about a terrible game with a capital T. I mean, 3 interceptions, was missing easy throws on big plays. He's obviously going to be looking to get back in the swing of things and getting back to the Ryan Tannehill we all know. You mentioned this defense. What is this defense going to have to do? I mean, we mentioned Burks, we mentioned Hopkins. We also got Aquanco, who wasn't even really showed up last game. What do they got to do to keep Tannehill from getting big plays in this game?
They're gonna have to rush him. They're gonna have to keep constant pressure on him, make him, in a sense, kind of see ghosts out there. Try and throw different things at him. I mean, that's another thing too. The Chargers really didn't throw that much pressure at Tua. And I thought they were going to blitz Derwin James a little bit more. I know they blitzed him once or twice, and there were run plays. But they need to do a little bit more of that. Maybe throw in an Eric Kendricks blitz, like try and do different things, because obviously, like we said, Tannehill, I mean, he's not as bad as I think what people think. I think there is times where he could really sling it and start doing some things, but the Chargers know that they have a dangerous offense, and they need to be careful for everything. Especially, I mean, a lot of people were saying that Tua wasn't that good, and they just some people say that, and that he can't stay healthy, this, that. Well, he just hung 466 on them, so
yep.
They need to be careful with Tannehill, because I mean, that dude could explode at any moment and take it to him.
All right, let me ask you this, Fernando. What are your 3 keys in this game for the LA Chargers to prevail?
Keep constant pressure on Tannehill. Don't limit explosive plays. Holy crap. They've allowed so many explosive plays since Brandon Staley took over. It's not even funny. Like it's pretty bad the way this defense has been. And on offense, I guess in a sense, keep on doing what you've been doing. I mean, it worked last week.
Yeah.
Try and balance the run and the pass. I mean, we all know Vic Fangio's defensive system is really good, and you hung 34 on them. So just on your offense, just keep on doing what you're doing. Try and integrate, though, Quentin Johnston, Josh Palmer, Mike Williams. Try and take advantage. I mean, Mike Williams is one of the best deep. That was another thing, too. You know what? I'll say it for this game. Take deep shots. They only took one on Sunday, and I was really surprised. I thought they'd go try and attack down the field a little bit more. I think they need to do that this game. I think you need to attack a little bit more down the field, keep the defense honest, and just try and outscore your opponent, I guess. If your defense isn't gonna be what you think it is, then try and outscore them. I guess it's gonna be the approach they're gonna have to take.
Yeah, and I said the Dolphins. You played the Titans aren't a high-scoring team, so if you put 34 points up versus the Titans, your chances of winning are very, very, very good, because the Dolphins only average about 20 points a game. And actually, in the first game that they just played, they didn't even score a touchdown. It was 5 Nick Folk field goals. Folk field goals. I always say Folk field goals that won the game. All right. What is your biggest worry for the Chargers in this game, Fernando?
The defense. I mean, the defense has to you have to start getting worried about that defense, just because there's a lot of money invested in there. I mean, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, JC Jackson. The only way I could see people not being worried about this defense is if you made 11 carbon copies of Derwin James and you threw him out onto the field. That's the only way I could see that they're not nervous about this defense. But it's just it's at that point where you're starting to kind of wonder, like, what was that like? What was that 2020 season then for Brandon Staley? If like, because that Rams defense was the best in the NFL, so I don't know. Is it him? Is it Tom Telesco? Like, it's a real head scratcher to know what it is. Because I mean, the Chargers have improved every single year that Brandon Staley's been here record wise, but I don't think the defense has improved at all. I mean, I'm starting to be at the point where I'm like, whoa, Gus Bradley really had a handle on this defense, and I think they've gotten worse since Brandon Staley's taken over. If I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, we want you to be honest. Well, last question before we let you run, Fernando. What do you think? Who prevails in this game?
Shoot. Just because their backs are against the wall, and I think the offense is gonna carry them. I'll say the Chargers, but I'm saying that with a lot of hesitancy because I know, and I guess taking it on the road, you kind of play a little bit less. You play a little bit more free, like with a lot more freedom on the road than you do at home. But yeah, I'm gonna have to say the Chargers win, and it's gonna be a close one, and I think it'll be a defensive battle. But I think they come out winning, and they come back 1-1. But like I said, I'm saying that with a lot of hesitancy. But you can't lose 2 AFC games in a row like that. That's gonna at the end of the season, it's going to come down to what your AFC record is, especially in a tough AFC. You can't drop 2 games in a row in the AFC. So I'll say they win this one.
All right, my friend. Well, listen, we got to run here, but we want to thank you so very, very much taking time to join us here today on Frankly Speaking Titans.
Thank you so much for having me, and have a great rest of your week.
You too, my friend. Stay safe. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Fernando Ramirez from the Los Angeles Chargers. He's a reporter at Sporting Trib. All right, folks, let's go ahead. Let's take a break, and we'll be back right after this message.
13 Daggers Tattoo Studio is looking for a new tattoo artist. Must be established with a strong portfolio and good work ethic. Stop by today at 13 Daggers across from Patriot Park on Fort Campbell Boulevard. Clarksville's ultimate tattoo studio. Tattoos, touch-ups, and consultations. See the artist's work online at 13daggerstattoo.com and get the custom experience you want with killer ink. Book today and get pricked by a pro. 13 Daggers Tattoo Studio. Rockin' hard on the boulevard.
So anxious about moving Mom into a senior living community. We feel so much better now. Mom is thriving. She's living her own life. We're totally in debt to Phoenix Senior Living because they recognize that when it comes to Mom, everything matters. I can't thank them enough for giving Mom the life we so desperately wanted her to have. She has such a sense of purpose and connection now. Her whole life has changed.
At Phoenix Senior Living, we want to provide more than just a beautiful building. In all my years of working with seniors, I have never once received a letter about how life-changing our beautiful building and decor were. But I have received letter after letter full of gratitude and appreciation for the people who have given their loved ones the love, care, and attention they needed. For every senior in our care, we invest the time and energy getting to know them, their likes, their dislikes, their interests, their needs, because truly knowing each of our residents and their families is crucial to providing excellent care unique to just them. That's our vision, and it's one we'd be honored to share with you and your loved one.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Frankly Speaking Titans right here on NGSC Sports Network. And we're streaming on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Twitch. Ladies and gentlemen, we just had on, we were talking about the Chargers versus the Titans. And, I am really proud now to go ahead and introduce to you in our Frankly Speaking Titans studio, I should say, via StreamYard, we have on former Titans center from 1998 to 2001. Let's welcome in Kevin Long.
Hey,
Kevin, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I have a little trouble seeing your face there, but It might be a little too. There you are. See, there he is, guys. It doesn't matter. They didn't see your face when you played either. So
What's
it's
the difference now? What might
yeah.
scarce?
What's the Hey, let me ask you this, Kevin. 1999. We've been talking a lot during our preseason shows about the Houston Oilers becoming the Tennessee Titans. I know that happened in '97. They moved over, but they were still. I think your first year you played, actually, they were still called the Tennessee Oilers, and then your second year they became the Tennessee Titans. How, how how is it for a player, when you go from one name to another name from a team's perspective?
Well, I think it wasn't that big a deal. The bigger component of it is that when we changed to the Tennessee Titans is when we kind of got our identity in the community and in Nashville and around Tennessee with the fans, because the Tennessee Oilers still had that old Houston kind of vibe behind it. And we played at Vanderbilt my rookie year. The year before that they played in Memphis, and you just didn't see a lot of turnout with the fans. We're at Vanderbilt Stadium. We were barely selling out those games. If we played Pittsburgh or someone decent that traveled, we would sell out those games. But, once we got our own name, the fans really got behind us. And then, obviously we got the support from them. And honestly, it could have been the boost we needed to get over that 8-8 mark.
Yeah, because you play in Vanderbilt one year. I think the first year when you played in Vanderbilt, you go 8-8. The next year you go to the Super Bowl. So, people talk now, they got new turf over there, this and that. Talk about the conditions. I know you talk about the fans and how important that is, of course, but what were the conditions like at Vanderbilt from going to a brand new stadium that was just built in Nissan Stadium?
Yeah. So my rookie year, we were in Vanderbilt's, one of their visitor locker rooms. I didn't have a locker. My Benji Olsen and my clothes were neatly folded up on the floor. And so we got to dress on the floor. And, like everybody talks about, you're going to the NFL, it's this big time. And, first game you get there and all your stuff's just spread out on the floor, and you're sitting crisscross applesauce to get ready for your first NFL game. And then, but obviously the next year when they built Adelphia at the time, the locker rooms were pristine, and it gave us something to be excited about. No more dressing on the floor. They had enough restrooms for everybody and showers and training room, and it felt like home.
Oh, are you there, buddy? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought we lost you for a minute. I heard a click there. Hey, you know what? I say 1999. When people ask me to describe the 1999 season of the Tennessee Titans, I called it a roller coaster of emotions. And I think that's the best way to describe it. And we just start with what was it? The playoff game. I think it was the wild card game where the Music City miracle happened with Buffalo. Talk about how it felt, here it is. You think the game's over. You don't want to think. You want to hope a miracle happens because you stay positive. But you and I both know the chances of that happening was slim to none. And then it happens. Walk us through your emotions before the play until after the play.
Yeah, well, it actually started 2 series before that, because we drove the ball down and kicked a field goal to go ahead. So we felt like, minute 30 left or whatever, and we're going to win the game. And of course, Buffalo comes back, drives the ball all the way down, and kicks a field goal. So we go from, winning the game to crap. Now we're going to lose. We're out. And so, obviously Lowry drew up that play, and so they hit the play, goes down the sidelines. The whole place is going nuts. Everybody's jumping up and down. And then holy crap, can't believe this happened. And then there's the 2.5 minutes or 3 minutes. It felt like an hour for them to decide whether it was a legal play or not. They had to go review it. So, you go like, we're winning, we're losing, we're winning. Oh crap, maybe we didn't win. So even at the last, because there was like 2 seconds left, we had to squib kick it. I was like, crap, they're going to run this back. But it was just the highs and lows of a football game. But yeah, it probably took 15 minutes total, but it felt like an hour.
Yeah, I'm sure it did for the fans too. I'll tell you that much. Talk about you get to the Super Bowl. Talk about the experience first. We'll talk about the game in a minute, but talk about the experience. Obviously, you've never been to a Super Bowl. It's only your second year, but talk about the whole everything leading up into the hoopla, the distractions, or whatever you want to call it, all the media responsibilities you have that are just magnified so much more. Talk about that week leading up and then the Super Bowl as a whole.
Yeah. So, the one thing that I'll say, this was the first year, I think the only year maybe that they didn't do 2 weeks prior, where you got a week off. So, I mean, we played in Jacksonville, won the AFC Championship. We flew home. They already had us in an event at the stadium to kind of, either celebrate the win or to, congratulate us for making it to the AFC Championship. So we landed. They bussed us over to Adelphia. We had like a little ceremony there, and then they're like, all right, go home, pack your stuff, be back up here at, 10 in the morning. And so we were back up at the facility at 10 in the morning and going over itinerary, how many tickets you need, what to expect, what the week's going to look like, and then this is what you need. So, and then we had about an hour and a half, 2 hours to kill. And then we were on a plane to Atlanta. And so we flew the biggest plane I've ever seen in my life to Atlanta, which was a 25-minute flight, which didn't make any sense. But, it was a nice 25 minutes. So we land in Atlanta. We go to the hotel, check in. We did have Monday night off to where we could go eat and stuff, hang out. But Tuesday's media day, which is our normal day off in the NFL. So we had to do media day at the Georgia Dome. And that took, 5 or 6 hours. And then we came back and, get treatments and watch a little film and catch up on, the Rams. And then Wednesday started a normal work week, so it was Wednesday morning, film, tape, dress, practice, film, eat, curfew. So we didn't really get to, get too much of the hoopla and excitement because we didn't have the week off prior,
Now,
so
would you have preferred now that like they have it now where you did have it, or did you like the idea of playing right away and not waiting that whole week?
I think it would have been nice to have the week off prior, just so we could have got to experience a little bit more. I was stupid. Florida State. I played in 2 national championships. So we went to the Super Bowl. I just thought this is how we were going to do it. I didn't make a lot of videos and didn't keep a lot of memorabilia because I just thought we were going to do this every year because that's what I was used to with Florida State. So.
Right.
But it would at least given me some time to, prepare and to make arrangements and stuff like that. But it was an extremely fast week. I mean, it blew by.
Now talk about we talked about the roller coaster. Here we go again in the Super Bowl. It's down to the last play of the game. You're down 23-16. Kevin Dyson has the ball and he stopped right before the goal line. Now you're watching that play. I mean, I'm sure actually you on the field, I believe, on that play. Did you get to see it from a view or were you too busy blocking?
Yeah, no, I was right there. The guys, the Rams D line were gassed. They were barely rushing. We weren't like just dying, but it was real easy to block and watch it all unfold. So it was right there in front of us, and maybe 5 or 6 times out of 10, Dyson breaks that tackle and we score. It just didn't happen. It wasn't meant to be.
I want to switch over a little bit about this year's Titans. I don't know how much you watched them, if you got to watch them this weekend or not. But when you had a tough loss back when you were playing, Kevin, what would Coach Fisher's, what are some of the things he would say, especially early in the season, to make you forget about that game and, just worry about the game that's coming up?
Yeah, I mean, just it's 1 week at a time. That's why we play, 16, 17 games, is make sure that, we've got plenty of opportunity to come back and make the playoffs. And it's a process. I think that, the biggest thing is that we would focus on the mistakes, learn from our mistakes. And, Fisher was a big component of that. He didn't like the silly mistakes. And then Munchak was our offensive line coach, so we really harped down on, what our inadequacies were and how to correct those so those don't happen again.
And you mentioned a great point about Munchak, and who was also great for the Oilers, a great offensive lineman. You see this Titans team now struggling, especially on the offensive line, and they take a lot of blame. I know that, but from what you would see, and as an experienced center, former center in the NFL, what do you see with this offensive line? Is it the players that they have, or is it just that you think they're maybe not being coaching correctly? And could this offensive line protect Ryan Tannehill?
Yeah, there's a few things that I notice, and I started to notice them last year. If you watch most defenses, the way to kind of slow down Derrick Henry is to try to get guys in his face in the backfield where he's having to cut early instead of pressing the hole. And so when you watch defensive lines, there's a lot of slanting going on, and teams are going to slant. This is not like a new feature that the teams are starting to scheme against us. But so one, we have to be prepared for the slants. The guys got to clear up their technique. Is it coaching? Sure, because you got to get the guys on the right page. They run a lot of zone blocking, and so when you overstep and a guy slants, you're going to whiff, and then you have a guy in the backfield. I think if you're in the NFL, you're there for a reason. Not everybody can, be a Bruce Matthews, but you're still playing at a high level. You should be able to fix your technique and put yourself in a better situation. And so that comes down to reps, and those guys got to get, a ton of reps, and maybe the coaches need to put, defensive, scout teams together that do a lot of slanting so they can get used to blocking. The days of blocking the dummies are over, because the dummies don't move. As far as the protection's concerned, I think that comes down to the offensive coordinator and the O-line coach of, running some protections to where you don't have guys isolated all the time. Slide protections to the left or right, kind of throwing the defense, off kilter, having the running backs chip, especially on third and long downs, is huge importance, because the left tackle or the right tackle knows if they got a chip coming that they don't have to, they're not worried about getting beat outside. They can protect more of their inside pass rush. And so that to me is about the scheme that the offensive coordinator's running, turn back protections and things like that. They're going to put the guys in a little bit better situation to perform.
And Kevin, I'm watching this game the past week, and I'm watching Ryan Tannehill, who had probably one of the worst games I've ever seen him play, at least as a Tennessee Titan. And I'm watching him, and to me, and tell me if I'm wrong, you were watching the same game. It did, I've heard and I take what the announcers say with a grain of salt. Sometimes they're homers, sometimes they're not. You know how that goes. But I thought Tannehill had some time in certain situations where he didn't get rid of the ball, yet you kept hearing it was the offensive line's fault not giving him protection. From an offensive lineman standpoint, what did you think? Did Tannehill have enough time? And part two of that question is, and I'm going to get right to it because I've talked about this all preseason. how much of this goes back to Coach Vrabel not allowing his offense? He did allow the line, but the starters to play during preseason.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I don't think Tannehill had a great game. Obviously some of it comes down to the offensive line. They have to do a better job of protecting. But I think some of it, to answer part 1 and 2 of your questions, when you get those reps in the preseason, you get your timing back,
Correct.
and when you're at practice, you're in a red jersey. No one's going to touch the quarterback. So it's easier to step up in the pocket or roll out when you feel some pressure. But when you're in a real life game and there's a 300-pound defensive tackle that's trying to kill you, it's a little bit different. And so you could tell that he wasn't comfortable in the pocket. He was, expecting some rushes, so he rushed some passes. He threw off his back foot, expecting to get hit. And I think that comes with, maybe getting some more reps in the preseason. You can try to protect him, but obviously you could see what happened last night to Aaron Rodgers, 4 plays
My
in.
goodness.
He's
Yep.
out for the year. So, when we played the preseason, the first string didn't get a lot of reps the first game, but the second game they played to the second quarter. The third game we played to halftime and came out and got 1 series in the third quarter. And then the fourth game, it was, all the guys trying to make the team. So, but there was, a whole game atmosphere in there on that, especially that third preseason game where we played through halftime and then came back out and got a series in. But I think when you get those live reps, you get your every quarterback's got to have an internal clock, and they got to know, when they need to get the ball, if they can step up, like when you watch the greats like Peyton and Tom Brady and those guys, they take one little step up in the pocket and it buys them a half a second. Those
How
guys.
much of that is trust also? I mean, as a quarterback, I know you played the line, but your quarterback has to trust his line. Otherwise, like you said, he's thrown off his back foot. He's rushing routes. We saw him miss 2 deep balls that were wide open, one to Spears, one to Chig. I mean, how much of that plays a role in trusting your offensive line?
Oh, for sure. He's got to have confidence in it. And you could tell that, it looked kind of like the latter part of last year where he's, trying to get the ball out early. He's not, trusting his line and the protection and, his instincts, not every quarterback has to scramble out to the right or to the left. You can step up in the pocket, up and to the left or up and to the right and buy yourself a little bit more time. And, and here's the thing. It's one game. I'm not ready to throw in the towel. I think this is going to, obviously, Tannehill's a pro. He's been in the league for a while. Hopefully he builds off this and he starts, now he's gotten hit. He knows what to expect, and he can, improve on some of his decision-making, this week against the Chargers.
Yeah, a couple more questions. I'll let you run, Kevin. Speaking of the Chargers, they gave up over 500 yards of total offense to the Miami Dolphins. Tua threw for, I think, 466 yards. And they are considered the worst rushing defense in all the NFL. How much should that weigh in the confidence level for now? Ryan Tannehill had a bad game, but he's going up against probably one of the not so good secondaries in the NFL, knowing that his running game should be effective. That's got to weigh a lot of confidence going into this weekend's game versus the Chargers.
Sure. I mean, it's always good to play a team that's, giving up a lot of yards. I'd be more interested to see the scheme that we come out with this week, because I do think they need to get Derrick Henry going.
Absolutely.
Same time, we have to have, somewhat of the element of surprise, maybe not run first down. Maybe we pass first down, run second down, just mixing it up a little bit, not being so predictable. But, it's you got to get the ball into the hands of your playmakers. I like what they did trying to get him the balls on the screens and the passes, but you got to see some more consistency in that. You can't have 10 rushes for 50-something yards in the first half and only 5 carries the second half on a mostly a tie or a 3-point game the whole game. There's no need to really panic, but when we're getting in our 12 packages and running 2 and 3 tight ends, we become more predictable, and teams are starting to put 8, 9 in the box against us. So I think we're going to have to show that we can run from the spread formation, or maybe just one tight end.
And you know what? Everyone talks about our defense, and I thought our front 4, front 7, whatever you want to call it, was very good at the pass rushing against Carr, but I thought our secondary looked terrible. I thought Murphy Bunting got beat on 2 plays. He's the free agent we picked up from the Buccaneers. I mean, I think our secondary definitely has to play better against a high-scoring. They got Eckler in the backfield. They got, of course, Herbert, who's proven to be a great quarterback. So they can put up points, and we all know that the Titans only average about 20 points a game.
Right. And I think you're going to find that most of the season, we're going to have to figure out how to not kick field goals when we get in the red zone. I mean, 5 for 5 in field goals is great.
Can you hear me? Your voice went off, Kevin. I can't hear you.
All right, sorry, phone call.
There you go. Okay.
But what I was saying is, 5 for 5 in field goals is great, but 2 of those need to be touchdowns. We got to figure out how to put, 28 points up on the board consistently to give this defense, the help it needs. I mean, holding Carr to no touchdowns in the first 3 quarters is pretty good. Obviously, we gave up the one late on a blown assignment, but I mean, it's the NFL. The guys on the other side of the ball are going to make you look stupid occasionally. So it's just how bad is the play. No one should catch the ball wide open, but if you get beat, learn from it. But I think the defense, played pretty much really well to hold them to that many points, especially with the offense turning the ball over, so much.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. Hey, one thing that didn't make sense in this game, I'd love to get your opinion on before we let you go. Mike Vrabel in his press conference says, I elected to let, I think Group A is his name, of the Saints kick the field goal because I was confident that our defense could stop the Saints, get the ball back, and kick a winning field goal. But it was, earlier in the game that he went ahead or during that time, he didn't, with Group A, he didn't trust his defense to stop them and push them back when they had that penalty against them and make them go again, which would have took them out of field goal range. What was your opinion on his decision to let them kick the field goal and for them to go ahead and go with their own field goal and give the ball back?
One, I've never coached at that high of a level, in this. But what I can tell you is this: when you're in the heat of the game and you feel like you've got the momentum, and you just feel tendencies that, hey, right now my defense is playing good, and I think what Vrabel was doing was just going off of what his gut was telling him. The defense was playing good, that we can get a stop here and we can get the ball back. We got 3 timeouts. We can. The defense could go out there and hold, especially with them back, and we can get the ball. And so it's probably more of a gut feeling. It's easy to sit back there and now look back and go, oh, well, you should have kicked the field goal or, whatever now. But, if we stop him and we come down and kick a field goal, he looks like a genius. So, you're going to win some and lose some. Belichick doesn't make the right calls all the time either. So, but I mean, I'm sure the one thing that I know about Mike is that he's ultra competitive. And if in fact he finds some flaws in his decision making, he'll fix it. He's a professional.
All right, last question. What do we got to do, from your opinion, to win this game in Nissan Stadium this upcoming weekend?
Okay. Well, the first one is we got to eliminate the turnovers. I don't know any teams that are going to be able to overcome 3 turnovers a game. It's just really hard to do. Secondly, we got to get Derrick Henry running the ball downhill. And thirdly, we have to change, if not 2, 3 of those field goals into touchdowns.
I agree 100%. Well, listen, buddy, we're running out of time. I want to thank you so much, as always, for taking time out of your schedule to come on Frankly Speaking Titans.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right, my friend, stay safe, and we'll catch you next time.
Have a good one.
You too. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Kevin Long, former Tennessee Titans center from 1998 to 2001. And I'll tell you what, folks, everything we wanted to know, you heard it right from the mouth of a former Tennessee Titan player who obviously played center from 98 to 2001. And I'll tell you what, that was some great stuff. I mean, unbelievable stuff came out of that interview with Kevin Long. Let's go ahead. Let's take a break, and we'll be back right after this.
So anxious about moving Mom into a senior living community. We feel so much better now. Mom is thriving. She's living her own life. We're totally in debt to Phoenix Senior Living because they recognize that when it comes to Mom, everything matters. I can't thank them enough for giving Mom the life we so desperately wanted her to have. She has such a sense of purpose and connection now. Her whole life has changed.
At Phoenix Senior Living, we want to provide more than just a beautiful building. In all my years of working with seniors, I have never once received a letter about how life-changing our beautiful building and decor were. But I have received letter after letter full of gratitude and appreciation for the people who have given their loved ones the love, care, and attention they needed. For every senior in our care, we invest the time and energy getting to know them, their likes, their dislikes, their interests, their needs, because truly knowing each of our residents and their families is crucial to providing excellent care unique to just them. That's our vision, and it's one we'd be honored to share with you and your loved one.
13 Daggers Tattoo Studio is looking for a new tattoo artist. Must be established with a strong portfolio and good work ethic. Stop by today at 13 Daggers across from Patriot Park on Fort Campbell Boulevard. Clarksville's ultimate tattoo studio. Tattoos, touch-ups, and consultations. See the artist's work online at 13daggerstattoo.com and get the custom experience you want with killer ink. Book today and get pricked by a pro. 13 Daggers Tattoo Studio. Rockin' hard on the Boulevard.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Frankly Speaking Titans. What a show, baby. What a show we've had. And, we got to see 2 terrific interviews. Unbelievable interviews so far today with Fernando Ramirez of the San Diego Chargers. He covers the San Diego Chargers. And also from former Tennessee Titans center Kevin Long. I hope you really enjoyed those. Now it's the keys to the game. Larry's keys to the game coming up in order for the Tennessee Titans to prevail this weekend. And you know what, folks? I'm going to tell you something. I really think they will prevail this weekend. You're not going to see the same team. I can't see a Mike Vrabel team coming out looking like that. Yeah, probably ever again. I'd like to say ever again because what we saw was just something we've never seen before. Nothing I've ever seen before from a Mike Vrabel team. But some of the keys are the defense. The defense has to show up to this game. I mean, this is a high-powered offense. Scored 34 points despite losing to the Miami Dolphins. Austin Eckler had 117 yards, 1 touchdown versus Miami. They're going to have to control that running game. Now, remember, folks, we are one of the best, if not the best, rushing defenses in the entire National Football League. So we just do our jobs. Real simple. I said it in preseason. The name of the game is just everyone do your job, we're going to be successful stopping the running game. Meanwhile, the Chargers had a total of 433 total yards. They scored, like I said, 34 points. They had 9 for 15. Listen to this, 9 for 15 on first downs. When you're able to get a team in third down and 5, third down and 4, even maybe longer, third down and 6, your defense, especially when it's a dominant team like the Titans, you have to be able to stop them on third down and force them to punt the football. It is a necessity if you're going to win, because now it becomes a field position battle, and you have to win that field position battle. Now, you're going to have to, if you stop Eckler, now Herbert is going to become one-dimensional. We all know about this rushing game. Monty Hooker was unbelievable in the last game. Key was unbelievable. What they have, 2 sacks, I think Hooker had. He had an interception. I mean, the guy was all over the place. We have to bring that same kind of pressure on Herbert to have him rush his throws and to feel like he has to get the ball out quickly. If you do that, because our secondary was not impressive, folks, last game, they're going to have to be a lot more effective. Bunting's going to have to be a lot more effective and show people why the Tennessee Titans elected to sign him during the offseason. Because what we saw last game was not what we expected out of Sean Murphy Bunting, and hopefully he will correct that and we will be fine. But they got to bring that pressure, and they got to bring it often. They got to win the turnover battles. Tannehill threw 3 interceptions. I think Carr threw 1 interception last week. Meanwhile, the Chargers had no turnovers last week. Even though they lost, they had 0 turnovers versus Miami. So we have to win the turnover battle. I mean, we got a fumble early in that game. Well, or it was actually stripped out by Hooker on the first place of the game, and then we got an interception. But overall, we have to win that turnover battle. We move to the offensive side of the football. You can't be predictable. Kevin Long talked about it. If you go with 2 and 3 tight ends, it's so easily predictable. And Derrick Henry's not on the field. It's predictable. I mentioned it in segment 1 of this show. You have to run different sets with 2 backs in the backfield, include Henry and Spears together in the backfield. Don't always want to do some play action. Also, it gives you an extra blocker for extra protection with that offensive line that you're not so sure about. So it helps Tannehill out. You have to execute on first downs. I mean, the Chargers have one of the worst run defenses in all of football. Derrick Henry should have a field day, but I can't remember exactly what the Titans ran. I was looking for it, but I know. Let me see if I have it over here. 2 for 12, 2 for 12 on first downs. You have to execute first downs. Not only do they sustain drives, they keep your defense off the field and fresh. But more importantly, it also runs clock time. So getting first down, sustaining drives are so big. They have to establish the passing game. But they got to remember something, folks. When you have a great running game like Derrick Henry, it opens up the passing game. But you can't go to the same damn receiver every time. There isn't only one receiver named DeAndre Hopkins on the field. You got Burks, you got Westbrook-Akeen, you got Chig. Chig was, I talked about the importance of using Chig when you don't have an offensive line you're confident in. And what did Tannehill do last week? He went to him twice, targeted him twice. Once was on that ball that he overthrew to him that he would have scored a touchdown on if he would have connected. So, you got to do that. And remember, once you start that running game and you move those safeties up, because now they know Henry is running the ball, or even Spears is successfully running the ball, the safeties pull up and it allows your men to get behind the safeties and opens up a lot of passing lanes. I cannot tell you how key it is for Henry to be able to run the ball effectively. You will see a completely different, unpredictable offense. And you can also run play action through it. So they're not going to know what's coming. But if you keep doing this stuff like, these three wide receiver sets and letting them know what's coming, how can you expect to win? You can't expect to win. It's just crazy. You got to get a little bit more imaginative with this offense. We mentioned about getting Chig involved. The Chargers secondary, folks, gave up 466 yards. 466 yards they gave up to Tua. Imagine if Tannehill can just get some open receivers, how much he can just destroy this defense. Remember, 36 points, folks, they gave up to the Miami Dolphins. 36 points. Okay, so this is a defense we should be able to dominate from an offensive perspective. The other thing, folks, forget about 3 in the red zone. Think 7. Every time you're in the red zone, you can't just have Nick Folk kicking a field goal. You got to put 7 on the board when you get inside the 20. And obviously, we didn't do that in the last game as we only kicked 5 field goals. Then the last thing, folks, don't beat yourselves. We can't have stupid penalties. You cannot have two things, actually: penalties and drop passes. You cannot have penalties that negate big drives or big plays, because it not only does it take the morale down, but it brings you back, and it's a lot harder to get a first down. Second of all, it can't be like Treylon Burks did last game, although he was only targeted a couple times too, and drop an easy pass. We know it happens. We know it happens, but we got to eliminate it as much as possible from happening. So, folks, those are Larry's keys to the game. The last thing we do every day, every week now, before we go, is we talk about the upcoming games in the there we go, in the NFL for week 2. Last week, not a successful week. I know a lot of people didn't have good week picking games. We were only 6-10 here, frankly speaking, Titans. We're looking to rebound and have a much better week. But first of all, we'll talk about the Titans game, okay? I think this is going to be a game where the Titans should get comfortable and should be able to do a lot more offensively than they were able to do. Obviously, I don't think you can do any less than you did in the Saints game, but playing the worst rush defense, playing a secondary that is not that good, we should be able to dominate from a total yard standpoint. And if we do the things I mentioned, which is a lot, easier said than done, we should prevail. Everybody talks about San Diego being good. They have Herbert, Justin Herbert this, Justin Herbert that. He is a good quarterback. I don't want to take that away. But there's a reason why this team doesn't continue to win on an overall basis. And it's because of that defense. This is a game where Tannehill needs to get comfortable and ride the wave throughout the season and forget about the last game. My prediction, it's the home opener. I don't care what the point spread says. I think they're taking LA by 3. I'm picking the Titans not only to win, but I think they can win by a couple of touchdowns in this game versus the Los Angeles Chargers. So this week, the Titans go 1-1. Let's go ahead. Let's move on. I'm going to have to do it this way, folks. Minnesota have Philadelphia. Minnesota lost their first game. Philadelphia won their first game. Philadelphia, arguably the best team in the NFL right now. I mean, everybody knows about A.J. Brown and what this team can do. They're playing home. I don't see this team losing at home. I'm taking Philadelphia over Minnesota. Green Bay, what a win last week versus Chicago. Jordan Love time is there in Green Bay. Atlanta, an up-and-coming team. They won last week, but they won't win this week. We're taking Green Bay on the road over Atlanta. Then you got the Raiders at Buffalo. Raiders won last week. Buffalo lost, as you all know, to the Jets on that the punt return by the New York Jets. Tough game for the Jets as they lost their quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. Buffalo, who's 0-1, will beat Vegas at home. Meanwhile, it's Baltimore at Cincinnati. Cincinnati 0-1. Boy, it's going to be weird when they're 0-2 after Baltimore beats them this weekend. Then you got Seattle versus Detroit. I know about Seattle. I know about Geno Smith. Seattle lost last week. Detroit beat Dallas. Detroit will also beat Seattle at home. So those fans are going to be going crazy in Detroit. Let's go ahead. We move on. We already talked about the Chargers in Tennessee. So let's go ahead and skip that. The Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears, they lost to the Green Bay Packers. Did not have a very, very good showing. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, meanwhile, Baker Mayfield, terrible in the first half, okay in the second half, but it was okay enough for them to win. And I got Tampa Bay again at home beating Chicago. Meanwhile, it's Kansas City 0-1. I just can't see. I know Jacksonville's at home. I know Jacksonville won. But I'll tell you what, folks, I can't see Patrick Mahomes' team starting 0-2. I'm taking the Chiefs over Jacksonville in Jacksonville. Then you got Indian. I don't know how I spelled Appleus there. Somehow a mark got in there. Versus Houston, and you see an asterisk there, folks. You know why? I'm taking a lot of people. I think right now 71% of the picks are taking the Indianapolis Colts at the Houston Astros. Listen to me, Houston Texans. But I'm not one of them. I'm thinking and saying that the Houston Texans behind C.J. Stroud will beat Anthony Richardson and the Indianapolis Colts. Then you go San Francisco at the Rams. Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and the San Francisco 49ers beat the Rams on the road. Meanwhile, the Giants at Arizona. I'll tell you what. I don't know how Arizona is even playing this year. I don't care if the Giants are good, bad, or ugly. They're going to win this game on the road versus Arizona. Then the Jets coming off this unbelievable win, the high of winning, the low of losing their quarterback for the season. I like Zach Wilson. I really do. I just don't know if it'll be enough to beat this very, very good Dallas Cowboys team this Dallas Cowboys team. So we'll have to see. I apologize. Detroit earlier, I said beat Dallas. They beat Kansas City last week. But I had the Jets losing to Dallas on the road. Then you got Washington at Denver. I'll tell you what, I like the Redskins. I like Sam Howell. I like this team. I'm picking them to beat Denver on the road. Miami, New England. I'm not a Miami fan. I'm not a New England fan. But when you look at it and you see what this offense did against San Diego, and I mentioned they're not San Diego. I'll be all right. I don't know what's going on with me today. I'm going back to the old days, I think. But, you saw what Miami did to the Chargers last week. Tua, 466 yards. Tyreek Hill, 11 catches. I don't see how. Although New England and Miami always play tough games. It don't matter what their records are. Usually I take the home team, but something's telling me here that Miami's going to prevail over New England. Then you got the Saints versus the Carolina Panthers, and you can swing this game any way you want. The Saints really didn't play well versus the Titans. They just played well enough to win. Meanwhile, Carolina lost last week to the Falcons. Didn't really show much. Bryce Young still going to take his bumps and bruises. He's learning. But since Carolina's at home in this one, I'm going to take Carolina over New Orleans in this game. And then the Monday Night Football game, Cleveland at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh looked terrible last week. I think they played San Francisco. Don't quote me on that. They played last week, but they didn't even come to play. Excuse me. But I believe in Kenny Pickett. I told you this Pittsburgh team is going to be really, really good this year, and I still believe that. And that's why I'm picking them at home versus the Browns this week, and they'll get their first win of the season. Well, folks, I'll tell you what. It's been an incredible show. I want to, first of all, remind all of you folks, if you can please do me a favor. Everybody knows we're on NGSC Sports. We're also streaming on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Twitch. If you can do me a favor, all my listeners, all my viewers, all my fans, everyone that's a Tennessee Titan fan, if you can please share this show to your friends. Share it on your profile, show it on your feed, show it on your link, so that every Tennessee Titans fans has an opportunity to watch this incredible show that we just put on for you. Once again, folks, we're looking forward to you coming back next week, joining us, where we can have a little bit more exciting of a show as our Tennessee Titans face the Chargers this week. Hopefully they'll win, and we'll be able to talk about the first win of the year. On behalf of all of us here at Frankly Speaking Titans, until next week, have a